Man, thank you so much for coming down here. I appreciate you all the way from Oklahoma City, man.
Yeah, the good old hour and a half, 2 hour drive to come see my homeboy. What's up, brother? How are you?
Hey, doing amazing, man. And
yes, you are.
Kevin Ducey over here. And so I don't botch anything. Tell us kind of a little bit about what you do, your title, your company, all that stuff.
Oh, right on. So I'm the Vice President of Business Development for Comma Insurance. Comma Insurance provides, specifically we go after loan officers, the opportunity to own their own insurance company and leverage one other aspect of the transaction that they're not, to provide some long-term residual income and a wealth-generating asset. And on the surface, we're an insurance company, but when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, like McDonald's has made their wealth because of all the real estate that they own. We are, in essence, more so a management company and a conduit to the carriers that we provide our clients, so that you can stay focused as much as possible on what makes you money and what you're good at, and that's writing loans. So it's pretty cool. I've been there a little over a year now. Before that, I was the president of Whiteboard for 2.5 years. We tripled our growth there and led it to an exit. So that was really exciting. And I love the fact that I got to stay connected to the mortgage industry.
Yeah.
I love loan officers. It's just not some BS thing that I say. I truly believe that owning a home is a major part of the American dream. I think owning a home is one of the most important things we can do for people to set up some generational wealth, change long-term socioeconomic status. And the fact that I get to help people do that with the next level of the American dream, which is entrepreneurship, is really pretty cool. And I love what I do. And it fills me with purpose, man. That's
awesome. And one thing that I think about whenever I think about your job, the thought that comes to mind is passive income. And I think that that's some of the things that a lot of people kind of hear, but they don't know kind of how to get started. Is that something that you would agree with, as far as like just, hey, here is how I can invest my money, and then without having to worry about anything, this is how I'm going to be able to generate more income? Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, 100%. So in mortgage and real estate, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here talking to you, is, you close a deal. Now what? You got a commission check. Now what? There's no promise of tomorrow. There's nothing that comes from that that's going to provide you with financial well-being for you and your family. And so that's why insurance makes so much sense, because the client, when they buy the home, they typically are looking for some form of insurance. And if you can own a part of that and you can refer it, you are walking them through the biggest financial transaction of their life. You are a trusted resource already. They are going to listen to you. So you make that referral, and then you can get that passive income, so that you've got an opportunity to hedge. We've got some clients of ours that bought in 2 years ago when, man, the refi boom was hot and heavy, and everybody's writing loans, and interest rates are 2.75% for a 30-year fixed, and their business is booming. Well, those folks who bought in 2 years ago are now receiving residual income checks when their business is down. Some folks are down 50-60%. So
yeah.
it's I saw the book on your shelf when we met a little bit earlier, Rich Dad Poor Dad. It is really that idea, is like assets and liabilities, and what are you going to invest your funds into. And passive income sources for any American is so critical. That's why, at one point in time, I think 75% of all millionaires were real estate based, because that rent check is that passive income source that we're looking for.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that so many people, like I said, don't know where to get started or how. And I think that as a loan officer, if you're willing to put in the work, you can be very blessed. And from there, depends on those decisions that you make with, what you're able to make, that could potentially put you in a completely great spot for your future, for you and your family. One of the things that you said is you feel that you've been so connected to the mortgage professionals because it's kind of there where they start, they can help people start their home ownership path, but not only their home ownership path, but their path to wealth, really. And one of the things that I've thought about is whenever, somebody asks me, what do you sell? You ask a realtor or you ask a lender, what do you sell? And they're going to say, a home or money to buy a home. But then whenever you think about that, you're actually selling ROI, return on investment. That's whenever you truly put the homeownership wealth into perspective. right? I did the math on the first house that I bought in August of 2016. My initial investment was about $5,000. My closing cost was paid for. And this is before I was in the business.
Right.
And kept that property whenever I bought my other property as a rental. I did an appraisal on it in May. And looking at my initial investment of $5,000, my return on investment was 1,800%. Tell me another investment that will give that to you and that won't be up and down every day, every month, every...
Can I tell you about Dogecoin? You should really look into that. Right. No, it's critical. And you know, when we start talking about owning homes, it is just that, and owning an insurance business is the same way. It's a wealth generating asset. Yes, the passive income that you're getting from your rent over mortgage is great, but really what you're doing is you're getting an accumulation and asset of wealth that you own that you can sell down the road for far more than the rent over mortgage will ever be for you. And I think about, you know, what you do specifically and your clientele and your clientele base, that yeah, we have some racial problems in America. I'm not gonna sit here and dance around that and say that we don't. But socioeconomic problems are probably the biggest driver of that. And owning a home is one of the most critical things that any human being can do on the face of this earth, well, in America, to bridge that gap of generational wealth and really pull people out of poverty, because you have a wealth generating asset that is going to continue to appreciate. Now, yes, there might be a 6 month, a year, maybe a 2 year gap where it doesn't appreciate over time, but over the history of time in America, your home will appreciate. And it is something that you can sell, that you can pass down, that your family, your children, your grandchildren can inherit. And when you have something like that, it can change the whole perspective of how you look at life. Furthermore, if you look at high crime rates are typically in high rental areas, right? Crime rate goes down when home ownership exceeds 50%. The stats are there because people take care of their property because it is a wealth generating asset. And it's just, I mean, I know with where interest rates are right now, it is difficult, it's maybe scary. I know with where inventory was, it's getting better. Obviously, it's a challenge, and where home prices are, but there's a infinite percent of interest on your rent payment. It is infinite. And when you own a home, I mean, the rates are going to come down.
Yeah.
You know, I know everybody joked about this going around on Facebook. It's like, you know, marry the house, date the rate, and people joked about it, but it is so true. Like, if interest rates are going to come back down, it's not if, it's when. And when they do, go get a better one. And you're
keep the same house.
You're set up. It's just, I can't stress to people enough. And I know that millennials and Gen Zs are a little soured on buying a home, but man, it will change the long-term financial outlook for your family like nothing else you can buy.
Absolutely.
It's the most stable asset you can buy.
Yes. So going back to you coming from Oklahoma City, I'm in Tulsa. What's crazy is that you would think that we met each other in Oklahoma.
Right. Nope.
So I met you this year, 2022, in Fort Lauderdale at a class that we went to, which was life-changing.
Give the toast, Will. Give the toast.
Come on, put me on the spot there. But it was such a valuable class, and it really has trickled onto other things. You know, a lot of people, like including you and including, you know, us doing this podcast, has been through the content creation that I've been able to kind of learn and everything. All that happened because of Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, Rene Rodriguez, man. Amplify, dude.
Yeah, it happened. I went to his Vegas thing last year, led me to the class. In that class, I met Brian Covey. Mm-hmm. Covey gave me recommendations, and then that's how I met Neil. And I mean, it's so crazy that you can literally save so much time by just the relationships that you create in life. So I'm so thankful that you're close to me, as far, not just like, you know, proximity, we're close, yeah. but you're literally like an hour and a half away, to where I'm just super thankful for that, because that class of 10 people that were at Fort Lauderdale, all of them, they're all over the nation, and being able to kind of just do this without having to, you know, plan out this big old trip, it's great, and it's good to kind of go back and forth and share our wins, share our losses, and be able to see how can we improve based on each other's experiences.
Yeah, and you know, the thing that I think Renee has such a unique ability to do for people is to extract your purpose.
Yeah.
To understand what you're trying to do. He talks about that 9 to 13 years of age and the transformative years and how we spend the rest of our life trying to honor or heal that past. And when I was able to truly understand what I'm trying to do for people and what I'm trying to do for my past and honor it, it was a life-changing event. And I'll compliment you on this is, man, you go to these conferences, you go to these shows, you go to classes, you do whatever, and you learn something, and most people learn it and it's great, and maybe they tell 1 or 2 people about it and they move on and do about their daily business. But brother, you are an implementer, man. You got back from that event and you got with Neil through Brian, and your video stuff is just so phenomenal. Now you got this podcast.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that.
Digital creator on Facebook. You are, well, I mean, I just told somebody to know you is to love you, and I think it's the truth. You just have this magnetic personality and this extreme optimism, and knowing your story and knowing your background.
Yeah,
like you should be a statistic, but you're a statistic in the other way now. Like you're the American dream. You're the true success story. And most people don't do that. Most people will get something, they learn something, and they just don't apply it. And your application of what you've learned is driving your success. And you're the 1%er, man. And it's awesome. And I'm glad to be in your presence. I'm glad to know you.
I appreciate that, man. That means a lot, especially because that is one of the biggest things that is so important to me. One of my favorite quotes is, "Rapid implementation is critical for success. And accountability is what will help you to be able to keep that things that you're implementing in order to stay consistent." Because you can implement something super fast. Like I could have went out and then done a couple videos, great. And then if there's no consistency, there's not going to be any success because I'm not consistently doing it. So I really, really appreciate that. But a question for you is, why do you think, what is your personal thought of why people do that? Like everybody says, I want to get abs, I want to have a lot of money, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then they have all this information, especially it's 2022. You can Google how to get abs the fast way or the fastest way. And then there'll be plenty of articles, plenty of videos, plenty of information to show you how to do it. Hey, you should go to the gym, start out 3 times a week, blah, 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 all this stuff. And nobody wants to do it. Why do you think that is?
It's funny you talk about abs while you're sitting next to me. What are you trying to say?
Come on, man.
No, I think that I love the psychology of understanding. I love the EQ side of business, and I love the psychology of human beings. I love to try to understand that, and I don't think I speak by it as any kind of residential expert. But I think there's a couple things. I think people are afraid of change. Change is scary. I think people, in some respects, growth is the hardest thing you'll ever do, right? You can't, nothing worth achieving or worth doing from a growth standpoint is easy. It's hard. And people are really comfortable with being comfortable. And you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because what you're asking people to do, if you're asking someone who's lived their life in poverty and they want to move up a socioeconomic class, you're in essence saying, I'm going to have to change my social circle. I'm going to have to change my spending habits. I'm going to have to change just about everything about myself to move into a different group of people, a different surrounding. And sometimes people are scared of success because they don't want to do that. And I think people get very comfortable with letting life live them. There's a song by Jason Isbell where he says, "Are you living the life you chose or the one that chose you?" Right? And I'd venture to guess probably 5% of people live the life they choose. 95%, they're just going through the motions. They just get up, they go to work, they come home, and do it all over again without much thought or process to growth because it's comfortable. There's a great book called The Comfort Crisis. And I think it's a Western problem, but it's a human problem. But we have so much at our disposal to make us comfortable nowadays that it's getting out of that is really hard. I mean, you think about the number of Americans that have back problems, 90% of it's because of sedentary lifestyle. You would think, oh, people have back problems because they're an athlete or because they're in a car accident or because they work out too hard. No, people have back problems because they sit on their ass all day and they lay in bed, and they go from sitting on their ass to laying in bed, and they don't exercise, and they don't eat well, and then they wonder why their back hurts, and then they say, woe is me. And it's just, you got to get out of that mindset. You've got to change. There's a victim mentality too that people have sometimes, that they think the world is against them. And I got news for everybody that's listening to this. Anybody in the world, your kids, the world is not against you. The world doesn't give a shit about you. And I'm sorry for swearing on your podcast.
No, you're good.
The world doesn't care about you. You're not that important. You know who cares about you? You. Fix you. To think that the world is conspiring, you're one of 7 billion people on this planet. To think that the world is conspiring against you is the most arrogant thought process a human being could have. To understand that it is not against you. You are given opportunities. We are in America. We do have freedoms that you can go out and work for it. And if you don't believe it, go ask the guy I'm talking to, folks. I mean, if you want to die, I mean, like you could share as much of your story as you want to share, but dude, you weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You were broke. You were broke as a joke as a kid, man. Like, times were hard eating, what you told me. Like, you wondered sometimes where you guys were going to eat. And now you're not even 30 yet, and you are killing the game in the mortgage business because you bet on yourself and you believe in yourself, and you weren't going to have that victim mentality. And God bless your mother and all the other people in your lives that helped you. It's there for the taking. If you truly want something in your life, you got to go out and work for it. But you also got to understand that, like, listen, hey, I'm never going to be Bill Gates. I'm totally cool with that. I'm not going to be Jeff Bezos. Totally cool with that. I don't necessarily want their life. Those people are wired in such a way, I wonder what kind of dads and husbands they are, right? Jeff Bezos just went through a divorce, right? There's a balance where you to get what you want to achieve, you have to truly understand what you do want to achieve.
Yeah.
And I don't think people lay those goals and those plans out for themselves that make a lot of sense. It's either pie in the sky or it's too low. There's got to be that happy medium. And I remember when I was in grade school, no, high school even, teacher asked, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? I had a really simple answer for it. And so I know I'm living my successful life. I'm very happy and content with it. I said I want to be a good dad and I want to be a good husband. And there's been times I haven't been either. But for the most part, I think I'm a good dad and I think I'm a good husband. And that's a successful life to me. That's the other aspect. I could get into that all day about what success is. Success is truly self-measured. It is not what society's trying to tell you to do. Jeff Bezos would look at that argument for me and be like, no way, dude. Elon Musk would be like, that's a horrible level of success. And that's fine. It is for them. They don't get to determine my success. I do. And if that's what makes me happy and that's what gives me a fulfilled life, I'm all for it. So truly understanding what you're trying to accomplish and what you want from this life is first and foremost in the way that you can go achieve your goals. And goals got to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound, man. I'm all about the SMART goals.
Yeah, I think that we're all wired different for a reason and a purpose.
Amen.
One of the things that I heard that it resonated with me so strongly was that we're all born with 2 lives. The second one starts when you realize that you only have one.
Hey, ain't that the truth?
And whenever you realize that you only have one life, it puts things into perspective that what truly makes me happy, because my time here is so limited. And whenever you find that and you find your why, so many people know what they do. A smaller amount of people know how to do it, and the top performers know why they do it.
Yep.
When you find your why is when you're going to be able to live that happy life and excel at it.
Yep.
But in order to get there, like you just said, you have to be able to go through discomfort and go through change in order to grow. Because so many people are so like, heck, so many people would having a panic attack saying like, hey, you got to move to a different state for whatever reason. People freak out about that. I was just having a conversation with somebody that we have an event going on next week in Dallas, and it's a conference, and this person I thought was coming, and now they're not coming anymore. And the things that they were telling me is like, well, I don't want to drive by myself. Why not? Because my car is really small. And because I might wreck, and I might do this. Like, there's a difference between faith and fear, and we have the choice to pick one because we have no idea what's going to happen in the future. And then you get to pick, do I want to have faith that things are going to go okay, that things are going to go good, or do I want to have anxiety and stress and have fear in the back? You know, I'm all for fear, because as far as like a little fear in the back of my head that's going to push me to get to where I want to go, but I am in the side that it's, hey, things are going to be okay. I'm going to go home after this, and I'm going to get home safe.
Yep. And you might not. And if you don't, you don't. You know, fear and worry that cause paralysis is really, really dangerous. Fear and worry that cause action is healthy. And I think that's
so good. Say that one more time.
Fear and action that cause paralysis is dangerous. Fear and worry that causes action is healthy.
That's so good.
And I think that, and you look at people, there's like three aspects of a way that you can look at your life. You can look at your past, your present, and your future. I think people who really have dark sadness or regret about the past can't fully live in the moment. And people who have a great fear of the future can't live in the moment. And if you can't live in the moment, that's the only place that happiness exists. I can't be happy about tomorrow. It's not here. I can't be happy about yesterday. It's gone. I can only be happy about the fact that I was able to jump into a car, drive across the state, have a great lunch with some friends, and meet up with a friend and do a podcast, and just think how thankful I am to do it. I woke up in a bed this morning with a roof over my head and air conditioning and a woman who loves me. You know what, like, of all the billions of people who walk the face of the earth, the fact that I got to wake up in a bed with a roof over my head and air conditioning, you know how like limited to people in the history of the world who have got to experience that? I was on a plane last week, and I got to be above the clouds and look down at the earth. The percentages of people on this face of this earth who have ever gotten to see that sight is so microscopically small. You got to take it in and just be thankful for that moment.
Yeah.
I can't be pissed off that the Wi-Fi is not working on Southwest, so I can't watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, right? So what, dude?
Yeah.
Just take in the moment and be thankful for what you have. And we as Americans have so much more. Even the poorest Americans have more than people realize. I mean, I think we're probably the only country in the world that has obese homeless people. I mean, we see it. I'm not knocking them, man. I'm not knocking because it's mental illness that they're dealing with. And I worked directly with a large percentage of the homeless population for the first 15 years of my professional career, and I've got a great deal of sympathy for them. But we are blessed as Americans. There's just so much that we have in our culture that you just don't. You got to take this. You can't continue to worry about yesterday or tomorrow. If you do that, you'll miss it. You'll miss it all the time. The secret to happiness is not some distant foreign thing. It's in the moment, you know?
Yeah, I think that us, not just as Americans, but just as humans, we're so quick to take things for granted. One of the things that you mentioned, you've heard my story, and there's so many people here in the United States that are below poverty level, but that still does not compare to any other country, including our neighboring country of Mexico, where I'm from. And so many people take stuff for granted, and then from that grows into entitlement.
Oh my goodness, yes.
One of the things, I was listening to a podcast between Tony Robbins and Ed Milet, and Tony Robbins was talking about sharing a story that he remembers being on a plane to a different country, and it was like a 12-hour ride. And this is before they had Wi-Fi on the plane for international flights.
Okay.
And everybody was, doing their own thing. Everybody was fine. And it was that flight that the pilot got on and said, hey, I want to share with you guys that we finally have Wi-Fi to fly international. So this is one of our first flights that we're going to have Wi-Fi. And everybody just cheered, including him. They were just like super happy because most of these people are business people. They're going to be able to work on their way over there. Everything was amazing. Not even 30 minutes later, the Wi-Fi goes out.
Of course.
Everyone's just pissed off. They're just cursing. They're like, this airline sucks. Like, what happened? And it took less than 30 minutes for people
to
become entitled. And then, and at that point, like, it just blows my mind. But that's literally the entire world, not just America. America has a different problem with it, but the entire world.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, like, it's very frustrating. And I think about living in the moment and just being thankful for what you have. To stop and realize that you're flying in a plane across the globe, something that humans had longed for since the dawn of time. Before they even understood it, we longed for it. And just you can't be appreciative if you're constantly living in the past or worried about the future, right? And I don't get the mindset. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've all been there. Absolutely, 100%. You're having a bad day, you're having a bad moment, but you just gotta let that go and be appreciative for what you have, and crank out a book and read something, man. Like, I mean, talk to your neighbor.
Yeah.
Engage in a conversation. That Wi-Fi will be there tomorrow, you know?
Yeah, that's one thing that, you know, with us being so privileged in the world of technology in 2022 and stuff, it has helped us.
Tremendously.
But it has taken away a lot of the human interaction that otherwise we would be having. Honestly, I think that part of the reason why podcasts are so big right now is because in what other setting besides right now would we be paying fully attention to each other's conversation?
Yeah, you wouldn't. And it's kind of like before we got started. Like, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. We're just going to be a couple dudes having a conversation, and if we can help somebody add some insight to it, or they can just listen in and enjoy it.
That's rare now, though.
Yeah, provide it. Yeah, absolutely.
If we were having lunch, if we were having happy hour, if we were just in you guys, you know, you were just in my office, and as I was talking to you, I was going through my emails to make sure. Right. Like, that's the world that we live in right now.
Well, yeah, and that's tough. It's tough to give people your undivided attention. I try to give everybody my undivided attention because I hate math. All right, that's a bad dad joke. I'm sorry about that.
Man, not motivating me to become a dad over here.
No, being a dad's the best, dude. You know when a joke becomes a dad joke?
When's that?
When it becomes a parent.
Dude,
I'm sorry. It's yes, I have an 8 and a 5-year-old, and I'm kind of leaning into the dad joke aspect of my life. So I'm just going to be that guy. I'm just going to.
There we go.
Hey, you know, that's my level of success: being a good dad and being a good husband, right?
Are those Cole Haans?
They are, yes, sir.
I'm just glad you didn't wear your New Balances up here, bro.
The Lawnmower 7s, those are in the garage, dude. They got grass stains on them.
Dude, so let me ask you this. Okay, talking about how, you know, we as a society and the technology that we have, I mean, we're so distracted and everything. And then also, time is just so valuable, right?
It's the most valuable asset you have in your life.
You know, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy really nice things. The nicest of them all is time. Yes. If I don't enjoy mowing my lawn, I'm motivated to make more money so I can pay somebody and they can do it. And I'm literally paying for an hour and a half of my time to do something else that I actually enjoy. So let me ask you this. If you had an extra 30 minutes every single day, what would you do with that 30 minutes?
Oh, man. I would lay on the floor and wrestle with my kids. I do a little bit of that. I don't do it enough. It's a goal of mine every day to lay on the floor and wrestle with my kids. You know, have you seen that meme? It's around Facebook. It's like there was one day when you went outside and you played with your friends and then you never did it again, and it just ended and you didn't realize it.
Yeah.
There's going to be a day I don't roll on the floor and wrestle with my kids ever again, and it'll be the saddest day of my life. But I won't even realize it till it's over. It's temporary, man. This moment, they're 5 and they're 8 and they're wonderful, and they're my why. And yeah, I'd try and find 30 minutes to lay on the floor and wrestle with them or hang out with my wife.
That's powerful. And the reason I ask that question is because sometimes we don't think about things like that. And whenever I try to split things, like for example, if I have to make 50 calls today, that seems daunting. That seems like a lot. But if I say, hey, what if I just make 10 calls for 10 minutes every hour? Because if I make 50 calls, chances are 50% of the people are going to answer.
I'm gonna change your perspective on that right now. You get to make 50 calls today.
Absolutely.
There are people in your position that do the same job you do that don't have 50 people to call.
Absolutely. I love that.
They don't have a Rolodex of 50 people.
I appreciate you for correcting me on that. I really do.
No, because that's
no.
We got to change the mindset.
Exactly.
On that, right?
No, absolutely. So then at that point, you get to the end of the day and then you're like, oh, I'm still not done with my calls. Or you're like, man, that was easy because I broke it up. So one of the things that I've thought about is, what if we broke it down? And it's actually kind of sad. What if we broke it down into, let's say that you live in New York and your parents live in LA. And let's say that you are 50 years old and let's say that your parents are 50 years old. Let's say that. And then you get to see your parents once a year for Christmas.
Yep.
And then your parents live to be 80, let's say. You have 30 years left with your parents, right?
You got 30 visits.
30 times left to see your parents.
That's my life right now.
Whenever you put things into perspective like that, it makes you be more in the moment, and it makes every single thing that you're doing with more purpose. You're not just at home for Christmas just to be there because that's what you do. You're there thinking, what more can I learn from my mom? What more can I learn from my dad? How can I be in the moment? How can I add value to people? How can I show you love?
Right, and it goes back to the only way you can be happy is happiness in the moment. And I know that people, like I was getting at, people have this dread from the past, but people who've had a hard past, you know, you and I have had some struggles in our past. We've talked about that. We talked about that at Amplify. I've made it through the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life, or else I wouldn't be here. I've already gone through the hardest thing I've ever been through. So I can take some solace, and just that can give me happiness. And I'm not promised tomorrow. I'm not promised this drive home from Tulsa to Oklahoma City that I'll make it. It could happen. I could die in a car crash. Okay, that's just life. So all I have, the only thing we have is this moment right here, right now. Appreciate it. And God, I'm the worst at it, folks. I'm not sitting here telling people like preaching. I'm the worst at it, that if we were just sitting here for a minute and, you know, our cell phones aren't in our pockets for a reason so we can stay focused, we'd pick them up and we'd start looking at them. And it is tough to have that thing. So one of the things I'm trying to do a better job of when I get home is I'll take my phone and I'll go put it on my nightstand next to my bed. Because I'm not hanging out in my bedroom, right? I'm hanging out in the living room, in the dining room, in the kitchen with the family and doing stuff like that. If I can have that there, my life becomes a lot better. If I can get that break from that stupid computer in my pocket, which is an amazing piece of technological advances that, like, I'd be appreciative that you have that. Be thankful for it. Your life's will be a lot better. And you think about this, like the next time, the same thing. Like my parents live in Illinois. My wife's parents live in New York. And you're right. There's my dad's in his 70s. My mom and my parents are in their 70s. My wife's parents, her dad just turned 70. So yeah, we're literally looking at, if it's once or twice a year, 25 to 50 times if we're lucky with some of them, right? How much time am I spending on that stupid cell phone? Can I put that thing away? Trying to do a lot better job of it on vacation. I just took a little guy's trip to go play some golf in Wisconsin, and God bless my team, man. I got back. I barely had any emails or notes internally. I had a lot of external ones. I can get to those. People understand you have to take vacation and stuff like that, and just try and appreciate the moment and try and put that stuff away. And just, if you can, learning to live in the moment is probably the biggest key to happiness for anybody.
I completely agree with that. If I was to put a penny in your shoe right now, would you not say that for the rest of the day or even a whole day, you would not forget that you have that penny, because every time you take a step, you could feel that. Yeah, so what I try to do is things that I hear, I try to just literally just engrave them in my head. And one of those that has helped me out a lot is I still haven't met people that I'm going to love yet. Yeah. And then whenever I literally think about that all the time, especially when I'm at like places where there's new people, that's the motivation that I have to like make sure that I'm present, because I'm like, there could be somebody here that could be the next person that I just give all this love to, but without giving that opportunity, that won't happen.
And not only love, but learn, right? So when I drop my kids off for school in the morning, and it drives them nuts because I ask them every day. But I ask people when I walk them through a sales class or a training classes, who can teach you something? And everybody comes up, well, anybody can teach you anything. No, that's not true. you can decide. Nobody can teach you anything. You can allow yourself to learn. Learning from somebody is a choice. Learning from anything is a choice, but you have to be present in the moment. You have to allow yourself. You have to be present to learn. And I think about this, like we go to conferences all the time for work, and we're there and we're sitting in the seats. What are you doing when you're there? You decided to take a flight. You paid for a hotel. You paid for a ticket for a conference. You're sitting in the seat. You're spending an entire day there. And I see people all around the room on their phones.
Yeah.
I saw people on their phones at Ford Academy when Ed Milet's talking. I mean, like, this guy's got the #1 podcast in the world. We are so bad about being in the moment, and you can't find somebody else to love or learn from if you're not there. And we're not there a lot, and it's challenging. It's challenging, and like I said, I'm not the best at it either. I struggle with it big time. I struggle with it at home more than I do at work, unfortunately.
Yeah, I had the privilege of talking with Brian last week, Brian Covey, and he was actually one of them, and got called out.
Got called out.
We talked about that in a little podcast sesh. But man, once again, I want to say thank you so much for coming out here, and I want to ask you this one final question. And at any point in your life, what do you think is the best advice that you've ever received?
Buy, don't rent. No, I do.
Hey, I think we can cut it in there. We can be that would be the ultimate ad right there.
Man, I was early 20s, and my dad said rent's like throwing money in a fire. It's the best piece of financial advice he ever gave me. Best piece of advice I ever received. Man, I've got tons of it. I'm going to go on a professional one here.
Okay.
And just because it's in my mind right now, and I don't want to take 10 minutes trying to think of what it is, because I've had so many people who've influenced me in my life. I can't think of one right off the top from a personal standpoint. But from a professional one, I had a gentleman by the name of Jay Reed, and I'll send this to him and I hope he listens to it. Jay was my senior vice president. I was a branch manager at a company called Labor Ready. And he asked me who my #1 customer was. And like Mervis Industries, man, that's the biggest payroll account I got. So many hours. He's like, nope. And I ran through every customer I could think of. I'm like, well, Mervis is 30 miles away, so maybe they're not my #1. And he said, this can be personal advice too. He goes, your #1 customer is the person who signs your paycheck. So my #1 customer is my first line supervisor. It changed my life from a business perspective, because when that #1 customer, that Mervis, would call and ask me for something, I would do it right away. When my boss would ask me for something, I would be, I'll try and get it. I got to take care of this for my customer. And it came to realize that I need to serve the people that serve me first and foremost. I talk about it with loan officers a lot. Like I'd ask you, like, who's your #1 customer? And what I think about it is it's your staff out there. They touch a lot of LOs will tell me it's their realtor. No. The staff out there touches every loan you have. My #1 customer when I get in my house is my wife, and that's my partner for life. That's the person I need to take care of. So understanding who your #1 customer is and really digging into that and giving it some thought, I think will change your perspective on how you treat the most important people in your life.
Yeah, that is so good, man. Especially in this industry, I think that over the last couple of years, we've gone through where staff like underwriters, processors, loan assistants, it's like we will hire you and we will pay you this much money because we need you, right? And then it's like, we need you. And then the business shifted. And then at that point, so many loan officers are just worried about themselves, and they're just like, how am I gonna recoup from this? But then we forget that there's people that we need to be doing this for, and at that point it's like, hey, we need to, I mean, there's been plenty of mortgage companies that have laid off a lot of people because they hired way too many people whenever the demand was there. But I feel that so many people don't take those people for granted and entitlement, and so that's really, really good, man. Once again, I appreciate you coming out here. You're a wealth of knowledge, and really appreciate, and I love all your stories. I love
you, brother. I appreciate you for having me, man. I mean that from the bottom of my heart, man.
Thanks, bro. I can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks again. Yeah. I can't believe that. I love it, man.
Mastermind, Darren Hardy in Las Vegas.
Yes, sir. Sounds good.
Yes, sir. Right on, brother.